Hey, this is Kate McClarnon with Benchmark Realty here in Nashville, Tennessee, and today is Industry Insiders Day! And today, we're going to talk to my second favorite attorney, Blake Harris Reynolds. Many of you know my husband is a licensed attorney, but he makes movies now. Trey, you'll always be number one in my heart. Let's go! Featuring Blake Harris Reynolds from Gore and Reynolds. I'd like to welcome Blake Harris Reynolds from Gore and Reynolds. Don't be scared. He is an attorney, the good kind of attorney. So thanks for joining, Blake. I appreciate it. I think for the average person, they don't really know what you do or why you exist.
What we do through the function of real estate is we basically just make sure that everyone is in the right spot and uses the right name, and everyone owns what they say they own. So you do all of the hard work, Kate, and you do all the good stuff, and you help people find their dreams and get the home of their dreams, and or sell it if they want to find a new one. And once all that hard work is done, I kind of bring all of these strings together, and we do what's called the closing. And so that's when you come and you sign all of your documents, and I'm the person who gets to sit there and kind of tell you what every document means in a way that you will probably forget by the time you're out of that room. But I kind of make sure all those documents either get properly recorded or they go where they need to go, like to the bank, to the servicer, things like that. An attorney's supposed to do when they're a title attorney is be responsible to the transaction. So their obligations ethically are to make sure the transaction goes through. There's no kind of funky business or anything weird where people are getting paid to commit loan fraud and things like that, and keep a good record and faithfully record everything on time. Typically, in Middle Tennessee, it's customary for there to be a title attorney or a title company on both sides. So a buyer has their title attorney and title company, a seller has theirs. It's not necessarily adversarial in this context because it is purely just a transaction, but it's to make sure everybody crosses their T's and dots their I's and make sure that everything goes through how it should.
What are some of the things that you are doing ahead of time to prepare for closing day?
And so once a contract becomes bound on both parties, it gets sent to us. We do a title search on the property. We go back 30 years and we trace the transactions of that piece of property. It actually goes back to a much more ancient time. They would trace the lineage of these documents basically by the houses or the people who owned them. And so they would start by saying, well, King Richard did this, or, Edward of this house conveyed it to this. And sometimes, even tracing back to like big events like the Norman invasion or things like that. And then they would delineate, after it was conveyed.
Okay, hold on. That's crazy. And I love that because everything I ever learn about law somehow goes back to 1,000 years ago. And I find it fascinating.
Yeah, it never stops. So in medieval England, in your castle, you've got the armory, your royal house, and the church, and all the things that matter. But there's also something called a monumentum, and that comes from the Latin word meaning fort or wall, munus monumentum. And so it was basically a chambered room that was as safe as they could make it. And they would keep all these scrolls, and that would be who owned what, because, in this time, there was no stock market. There was no bonds that you could buy for investments. It was all dirt. It was all the land that you owned kind of dictated your wealth, and they had to trace it, and they had to justify who owned it and how much. And we really haven't evolved that much since then. We've changed from having castles to having, state and county governments. And so now the walls are all digital. Everything gets recorded with the Register of Deeds. Anybody can record a document against a piece of property with the Register of Deeds. So like judgment liens, if you were to sue me and win, you could then record some of those judgments against the property that I own. For example, a person bought a home, they really liked it, had a brand new roof on it, super excited, it was beautiful. Start doing the title search, that brand new roof never got paid for. And so the roofer placed what's called a mechanics and materialman's lien on the property for their wages and for the roof that they just made. And so that lien has to get satisfied before the property can be conveyed or can be sold. And so what we do is we contact the banks that have mortgages outstanding on the property or judgment liens. We'll have to talk to other attorneys, individuals, and make sure that all those numbers kind of add up so that the property can be sold to the new buyers.
What if something were to go wrong And then title insurance might come into play. Who has title insurance? Who does it protect? And what is it there for?
It's very different from what we conventionally think of as insurance. But really, the reason that I'm involved at all is because the banks are loaning significant amount of money to individuals to buy these homes. They want to make sure that their investment is sound, and they take out an insurance policy on that investment. And so anytime you get a loan, they're going to require title insurance. And what that is me getting a title search done, reviewing the records, looking at the numbers, making sure everything matches, and the people who are selling it, in fact, free and clear, and or all the liens on the property have been duly satisfied.
And title insurance is not something that someone's going to pay monthly. It's a one-time cost at closing, correct?
Right. And so it's kind of, it's good because it's not something like homeowners insurance or car insurance where you pay it every month. And then if you have a car accident, you file a claim and, oh no, your premiums are going to go up, things like that. It's a one-time deal. However, it is charged. You get a new policy every time you get a loan or every time there's a transaction. And basically what that does is it just says you're up to date as of right now. What the title insurance guarantees is that, no one owns it but you, and it's up to the value of that property. And then it can be a little complicated as far as actually paying it out versus indemnifying the party to make sure that the title gets into their name. So helping you basically sue, if you will, to make the title go into your name or things like that. Again, it's one of those fun lawyer words. It depends on kind of how that shakes out.
It's always the answer. When you ask a lawyer a question, when you ask my husband a question, it depends. You know what? Real estate agents are not attorneys. And that's why we have you, because I can't practice law. And quite frankly, I don't want to practice law. So
people who know what it means actually do.
Yeah. What questions do you often get from either buyers or sellers at the closing table?
People have questions about taxes. Is it going to go up? Things like that. And I can't look into a crystal ball, but I can kind of explain how that works. And, if they have some questions that maybe they didn't think about until just then, what happens if we pay off our loan? That escrow account will go away. Sometimes we're at the closing table and people are like, well, what school zone are we, here for?
Not my clients. So is there anything else that you think that people should know about the closing day or about title to a home?
The best thing to do, as always, I can say, is listen to your experts. And so, most of the individuals now in the market trust their realtor, and they trust them for very good reason. Strong people like yourself who have their interests at heart and help them kind of understand the market. I would kind of defer to a lot of what you would say as far as in the process, getting pre-qualified, talking to your lender what that looks like, and kind of anticipating what those payments are. I think title is a very boring, very obscure thing.
No.
But there's plenty of information there. To be blunt, the less the end client, the buyer, or the seller really know before closing, the better. Because if I'm getting in touch with you, that means there's probably a problem. And therefore, if it's nice and smooth and you get a hello call from me and then a hello at closing, that's hopefully the best case scenario.
Well, I appreciate you being part of my team because I can always trust you and your office to do everything that's needed to be done to make my clients happy. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate you taking the time today.
Thanks so much. See you soon.